Hello and welcome to the Good Old Days, our show focusing on the history of Raynham. Our host is retired Selectman Don McKinnon, and we have a special guest today. Don, give you the honors.
Senator Marc Pacheco, who's a friend from many years gone by, and as I said the last time I introduced Marc, he was related to 80% of the town. And I think the 20% of you who want could leave if you wish or stay, but we don't care because Marc's going to talk to his relatives. I mean, so it's very good. Thank you very much, Senator, for coming on board.
Thank you very much, Don and Pat, for having me on the program. I was pleased to see that you were doing this program because it's I think it's important for the townspeople and those in the region to hear from you because you've given so much over the years.
Well, the thing that gave me the idea was not a positive thing. What happened was Kathleen Roberts, who is now 99, was interviewing Al Porter after he retired in his living room, and it was a wonderful tape. And then they got it back to the office and they taped over it the next day. I think it was a ball game or something, and that was the end of Al Porter. And I thought, here are these people that are here now, and we should get them on a tape while we can, because wouldn't you have loved to have had people from days gone by? We don't have Johnny Parker on any of those tapes. You know, we don't have any of the people who have served many years ago.
Just for clarification, Don, that was before we had our own Raynham Channel right here in Raynham, our own studio.
Right.
So
Many years before
many
that,
years
Pat. You
many
and I
years
go
before.
back to,
yes,
Pat and I go back to Easton,
yes,
then the dog track.
yes.
I visited Pat a few times in
Yes.
Easton to
Yeah,
tape
we went
there.
to Stoughton. We were
Yes.
even in Stoughton, Pat and I. Stoughton, the dog track, Easton, and then we became our own. And that wasn't that many years ago. We've had our own. But the good old days, there's two parts of it, which we don't have to put into it because we can explain it. It's those were the good old days, and we've done that pretty well. We've got a few, but most of the older people don't want to go on. That's the bad part. The elders don't want to go on. And then the next one is, these are the good old days, which means we will have it for our historical commission to be taped for
that's
people
great.
who want to do a
Yeah, that's
historical
very
study.
good.
But we brought in Gordon Luciano a couple of weeks ago. Gordon, I'd say, is the Harry Carey of Raynham now. Harry Carey was on just about every board. You know Harry.
I certainly do.
Every
yeah.
board you name, Harry was on it. And Gordon now, it was finance, was selectman, was
School committee.
assessor, school committee. So he's our current Harry Carey. So he started it, and then we invite you, and we're getting into partly the old days, but also it's current. You're today, what you're doing today.
Mark would be our Senator Parker of years ago, who served for many, many years.
He
the
would.
district.
He would. And, you know, I don't know which one you want to talk on, but one of the things that I've marveled at that you've been able to do is to communicate not only with the city, but also with the towns. And that is not that easy to do. As a matter of fact, one of our long-term representatives lost his race to the towns, I believe, one time, because it isn't that easy to communicate to them both. So that's where you...
Well, it's very difficult.
That's my point.
The district is a very unique district because not only do I have the city of Taunton, as you both know.
Which is a
and-
full-fledged, what is that,
Yeah,
65?
it's 50 square miles.
Yeah. Largest city in
largest
Massachusetts.
landed city
Yeah.
in Massachusetts, and
Right.
there's approximately 60,000 residents there now.
Yeah,
So it's
60,000.
it's getting to be quite a difficult city to manage because it's such a large landed territory, a lot of
Right.
roads and a lot of infrastructure needs and those types of things. And certainly a lot of the towns in my senatorial district are very diverse. You have communities that are can essentially take care of their own needs. There are those towns that have a higher ability to pay than other communities do, and then you have those towns that are really scratching every quarter
Some
to
of your
make sure
towns
that
still
they're getting
have
by.
volunteer fire and things.
Oh,
I
absolutely,
imagine.
yes. I mean,
We don't have
and then you've got communities like, Middleborough is one of the larger
Second
towns
largest,
and-
second largest.
Yeah, to Plymouth in terms of
Yeah,
towns.
yeah.
And so they have a lot of different issues that are going on. And of course, when you see the growth rates in a lot of the towns, in this part of southeastern Massachusetts, before we hit this most recent recession, we were the fastest growing region in all of the northeast part of the United States of America.
Wow. And Raynham was right up there with the growth.
Right. I mean, it was amazing in terms of the growth rates that were taking place here in the northeast. In what I was talking about, the northeast part of the United States, and we were the fastest growing rate here in Massachusetts, and in this section of Massachusetts, we were really on a boom years, and that's because of the land that was available, and people would come down from the Boston, Quincy,
Look at Middleborough.
northern region, and they'd come down and they'd be able to purchase 3 times as much acreage as they could get just north of us, or they could get the house that would be significantly larger in terms of square feet.
True.
For 60% of the cost that they were paying at the time. Of course, things have changed since the recession hit, but it's starting to inch its way back up there, and we're starting to see the same type of situation starting to happen again in the housing market. So anyway, there's a great diversity. I was just in one of my towns this past week in the small town of Marion, but it is an absolute gorgeous little town in my district.
Why do I think
it
that's
houses
in the Cape, but it isn't in the
Tabor
Cape.
Academy.
down
It's
off
right
of-
on.
Is
It's right on
Tabor
the
Academy
water.
there?
It's,
Wow.
Tabor's there, and it's a beautiful town.
That's near
But-
Mattapoisett?
Yes, it's right above
But you don't have
Mattapoisett.
Mattapoisett?
I don't have any. I used to represent
Oh,
Mattapoisett.
okay.
I feel like Bonnie Frank sometimes when people would ask him, well, what's your district? He said, well, I have to check because it's been changed so
That's
many.
right. He had
it's
an
been-
office in Bridgewater
Yeah,
at
it's
one
been
time.
changed so many
Then it was
times.
Taunton.
And my district has changed significantly. I used to have Halifax and Rehoboth, Seekonk, Marion. So I had a number of communities over the years.
Yeah.
But Mattapoisett I no longer represent, but I do represent Marion and Wareham, and they're both coastal communities,
Those
as
are
you
beautiful
know.
towns.
And they're great communities. I can remember going as a young boy with my mom and dad to Wareham, to Onset. We'd go there on the weekend
Sure.
that was our vacation, to drive out to Onset for the day and get some ice cream on the dock and
Yeah, no,
over
true.
by the pier.
Those were the
And,
days, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's a very diverse district, and I think sometimes the best way that I've tried to at least represent the district is to just respond. People are calling, selectmen or different town leaders may contact the office, and so it's important that they get good service, because I know what it's like to serve at the local level.
And do you
And-
think that's sort of a key to you being in tune with what the local communities need? The fact that you started as administrative assistant to the mayor of Taunton, served on the Taunton School Committee, that background.
Yeah, for 10 years on
working-
the Taunton School Committee, as you know. Pat
My
had
first
to,
job.
Pat had to sit through many a meeting back then in the Taunton School
Oh, you were at the
Committee.
Enterprise that time?
I was WPEP to begin with.
Yes.
Pep.
mhm.
And
And so
they had
she,
a power that would go to the weir.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, it would reach Norton. WRLM was the big one, 50,000
Right.
watts.
but she was, very, very good,
she-
and
yeah, she was,
every,
yeah.
in the local press, it was very, very interesting, because it was a time period in which we did not have this medium available.
That's right.
Very early on, when
That's right.
when I served as a member of the school board, we didn't have cameras at the meetings as happens now, and so there's no such thing as an educational channel.
There are
and that-
people who didn't want tape recorders at the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember that. Some of the local officials did not want it.
And so from serving on a school board, as Pat referenced, and serving in an executive branch agency at the local level, I certainly understand firsthand what it's like to, take those calls, to have constituents that are very upset about what's happening locally, and it may have something to do at the state level, with the state level. And a lot of times local leaders just want to know what the rules of the game are in terms of getting things done for their constituents, not necessarily looking to have a rabbit pulled out of the hat, although that's been requested several times over the years. But they just want to make sure that they have all the appropriate information so that they can, pass that information along to people that they represent.
Because I'm looking at, what's it, David Pottier, who ran the last time? He's Raynhamite originally. I kid him all the time and say, you don't say you're from Raynham and Taunton, do you? But he was a formidable opponent. He was not chopped liver. And you beat him like he wasn't even in the race, I'm saying. And that often the Republican candidate in towns would come to the fore. I think that's what happened to the candidate we're talking about. But, that lost in the towns, not in the city. But somehow or other, you must have answered the wall. So I'm kind of concerned about young Kennedy, to tell you the truth, because his uncle, Ted, he had a great, like you do, he answered the calls if it came. And this guy, I keep repeating it, of course, I don't think he's been to Raynham yet. And, so when you do that, you say, well, definitely then we're not getting constituency result if we're not getting that. But you must have done it. And do you have any, not to give away how you do it, but is there any advice to young people getting into government, how they could run for these offices? Or?
Well, if you're in office, have good staff. That's what I say.
Yeah.
And
this may be Menino's.
I am very fortunate that I've had a number of very, very.
Mary.
Mary Wasilic is my chief of staff, and many of you that are watching the program, may have had the opportunity to interact with her. Certainly, those that are in manufactured housing communities here in the town or anywhere throughout my district would have had the opportunity to talk to Mary, because she is the primary person in my office that deals with, mobile home issues or manufactured housing issues, as we like to say.
Is there
today.
Is there an issue with trying to get, because you have people from the top colleges in the world in your office? Is there a competitiveness to get those kind of people, or do they just?
Well, what happens to me is I try to seek out, young people who are looking to intern. I have a lot of interns that work for me that are attending Boston metropolitan area schools, and we've also had a number of interns from Bridgewater State University and others, private and public higher education institutions, and they come in, and usually we'll assign them projects, and they'll be working on these projects so that we get the best type of research done that we can afford to get done, based upon the limited budget that we do have with legislative budgets. So I mean, my first recommendation is, I don't care at what level of government somebody is sitting at, whether it's a counselor or a member of Board of Selectmen or in particular in an executive branch position. You've got an outstanding executive here in the town with Randy. But
he's been with us over 25 years.
Yeah, he's been here the whole time that I've represented the town, and before that. So I think executive branch agencies should definitely take advantage of the student body population that's in the region, that are studying government, that are studying and have the research skills to help today, because it becomes, I've seen over the years, and I've had the good fortune to have you return me numerous times to the Senate and to the House before that, and I am very honored to have been serving in this district for a number of years.
You've been
But
in
it's-
this town since the beginning
Yes,
of your
yes.
Senate career, as
Since
was
the-
Johnny Parker before
yes.
you. So Raynham and Taunton have always been
They've been part of
very much so.
the same district.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to give those young people an opportunity to get into the office and I get educated all the time, every week, by my staff about different issues that are going on. And
That's what I was
it's-
going to ask you too. How do you find the issues? Because there seems to be a timing that you have that gets into the issues. Is it because of the grapevine, the aides, or your staff, or how does?
Well, it's partially because of the relationship I have with staff, and also the things I insist that staff do, in reaching out to constituency groups throughout, my Senate district, and also for me to get out of the office, get out of Boston, and to be in the district. Now, unfortunately, more recently, it's become that much more difficult to be in every corner of the district, because when you take on greater responsibility within the legislature, that requires more time in Boston or in other places, even sometimes out of the country or in Washington, D.C. So you have to be mindful that when you're taking that time away from actually physically being somewhere in the district, that you have to make up for it.
Right.
And so we try to schedule me to be in the district more often. And this medium also provides an opportunity for me to be directly into people's homes, so that through their local representatives here, and you both are around town all the time, talking to people, and what's on, people's minds, and that's why I come and do these types of programs, so that, you can ask me questions and we can, have a little dialogue that the citizens can, continue to be informed.
But you're obviously very comfortable in Raynham because you're almost a Raynhamite in fashion. Whereas I would think down at Marion, I always think of the librarian, but that's not the one. Marion and places, Middleborough, thank goodness you don't have Plymouth. Plymouth is a tough town. Middleborough is very different. I've been there quite often. I'm sure you've been there more. Pat, you go to Middleborough at all?
Not
You
too
go
often.
there one day, they're dressed up like they're at a
Is that
Queens.
foreign travel for you? I
It
don't
is
know.
for me.
Is that what is going
It
on
is,
here?
it is.
I don't
Now,
know.
if we get back to the history of Raynham, though, what do you see during your tenure in the legislature? What do you see as kind of the big events in the town of Raynham? And that's one
there's
that
been-
I think of right
yeah.
away, which Don took a lead role on, was that, and I don't know if you were serving at that point, was what has now become Raynham Woods Commerce Park, that at one
Yes.
point was going to be a Jordan Marsh facility, and then it was slated as possibly a hazardous waste dump site, and instead became Raynham Woods, and I think that's made a critical difference in the town of Raynham.
It's a huge issue for the town in terms of the economic development and tax base for the town. And a lot of my towns will ask me, different things that have happened, best practices, and things that they should be looking at. I said, well, you have to have a balanced place where you're getting your tax revenue from.
Right.
And I quite often point to Raynham. Of course, Raynham has always been benefited from the I call the auto couple of miles, that
Right,
comes
it
through
is,
the
it
town.
is, yeah.
It's always benefited
Oh, no, don't
by
take that away from them.
by them, and that's helped, and it's created a lot of jobs there. I mean, a lot of the automobile dealerships that are up and down, Route 44 employ thousands of people, literally, from mechanics to office workers to, back office staff, to salespeople, the businesses and small businesses that they in turn do business with, printers and, the local press and everyone else. It's a significant economic engine for the town, right?
Sure, 75-25
Yeah,
now,
so
yeah.
it's a
As the
huge
industrial
deal.
park in Taunton.
Yeah, and so that's been a big thing here in the town. I would say that some of the political issues we've had to work on was many years ago, one of the first things I had to work on was the whole idea of housing in the manufactured housing communities here in the town, which today are much more stable
Has that
and
been
has a good
adopted
future.
nationally? Because your legislation was so forward-thinking that
Mm-hmm.
the fact that prior to Mark coming in, if you lived in a mobile home park and a person were gonna close the mobile home park, all they'd have to do is get on the phone, call X number of mobile homes and say, well, none of the mobile homes were taking vintage mobile units, so the person didn't have a home. With your legislation, they had to do that, and that, I'm wondering, did that go national? Because the people,
There are other states that are,
Doing
have
that?
looked at it, but what's happened is it's really given the average resident a fighting chance when there's been a change in ownership, and as a result of the law change, and as a result of the Attorney General's office actually being involved with these types of issues, then you don't see the threats that had taken place, a number of years ago. And
that would
so,
have been your first year in, just about.
yeah, it was
Because
very
Irving
early
Wall,
on.
Who was in for one term,
Mhm.
I remember him meeting at a mobile home unit. And so therefore, he was the senator when it crashed.
Yeah, I was actually trying to
Mark
get it
came
done
in.
on the House side
That's right.
first, and it passed the House a few years in a row, and it always failed in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, that was one of the reasons why, I decided to run, for the Senate, because we weren't able to get the ball brought over the, over the goal line for a touchdown for Raynham, and we were able to do that in my first year in the Senate. So that was a big issue that impacted a lot of lives of people, many seniors in the town, and I still have people today that will come up to me who were at the time younger baby boomers who had just started to reside in the park, and today are a bit more mature, and will come up to me and say, geez, thank you, because my home is here. I don't have to worry about my future, and it makes all the difference in the world. And quite frankly, that's one of the reasons why I serve. That it's quite gratifying to see the times that legislation does pass. That sometimes it's not legislation; it might be working on a constituent issue for a resident, and you have a positive outcome, and it's very positive. Some of the other issues that have happened in the community, and we've had the great fight over the years of trying to get the legislature to pay attention to the Raynham Park, for example, and the whole Greyhound issue, and how the town here that had the most direct experience with the Raynham Park voted one way, and of course we had jurisdictions in Berkshires and other places in the state that voted another way, and that was probably the pinnacle of all the work that I had been doing with Raynham Park for a number of years, because it's another economic center for the town. It's work that I have been involved with. Percentage of the handle actually comes to the town, and I'd work with the selectmen then when Don was a member, and I work with them now on those types of issues. And of course now we're at a focal point of decision making as to what will happen for the future of the town. So we're coming up to another historic milestone.
Absolutely.
In terms of the future of Raynham vis-a-vis what happens to Raynham Park. Because depending upon how that all goes, that could make a huge difference in the town's future.
I used to always refer to Raynham as the outfield, Taunton with the center, and the best center around. Then it comes out, and 138 goes one way and 44 goes the other, and we're kind of the outfield. And we have the industrial park off 44, but we do have the Raynham Park, which is very, very important to the town, in the other end. And there it sits, and stay tuned on it, Mark. There'll be a decision fairly soon on that?
Well, I hope so. I hope we get a decision as quickly as possible, because I, for one, have been somebody, as the both of you know, and hopefully the viewers will understand, I've been a supporter of the Raynham Park being able to have the new games that are available for them to be able to allow the citizens of the region to play. People from Raynham and Taunton and southeastern Massachusetts every day make their own choice and decide to go to Twin Rivers or Foxwoods or Mohegan Sun or wherever it was, and they decide to go.
Yeah.
And they take their recreational dollar and leave our state to go somewhere else, and they leave a portion of their recreational dollar there. And it doesn't stay here. First of all, it doesn't stay in our state. And secondly, it doesn't give a local economic impact. So this would do that, and that's why I was pleased to see the very high voter approval
Yes.
of this question. It was in the upper 60 percentile.
That's right.
It was significant, and the high percentage of voter turnout that came out, for that question as well was quite significant. And I try to explain to my colleagues in the legislature all the time, those that might be opposed to expansion of gaming or opposed to having the slot parlors, because I was one of the people that supported actually more than one slot parlor in the state, that we certainly could do more than one. I quite frankly think that looking into the future, if I were to look into a crystal ball here and look into the future, I would say sometime in the future you would probably see more than one, slot parlor in the state.
What do you think Raynham's chances at this point?
I have no idea. And I would say, and I try, it's very hard for me to look at it objectively, right? Because I represent the town, and I also know of the tremendous amount of work that has gone on at the park. I know what the Connie family has done. I know what they've done in terms of reaching out and getting a good quality operator to come in and work with them. I have, had some of the presentation, given to me as to what they expect to see developed there. And I know, and we all know, the quality operation that had taken place there years ago, and even up until most recently with the, quality restaurant facilities that they've had and they've operated there at that place of business. So I'd say if you take all of that into consideration, and if the commission were to look at one's experience and history in terms of delivering on what an operator says they're going to do, right? Then, I might be a bit old-fashioned about it, but I sort of like to look at what people have said they're going to do, and then look at what they've actually done. And, and if those two things match up, it's probably a good outcome for the future in working with those individuals or those entities or organizations. And so I think the commission would be foolish not to pick Raynham Park as the first slot parlor that would open in Massachusetts. Now, having said that, there are going to be there's going to be credible competition that's out there. And people will say that, well, Senator, there's a possibility of a casino in Taunton, or there might be a possibility of a casino in New Bedford. And I say, yeah, well, there's a possibility of casinos in Zone A and B as well. So we're in Zone C. And in every zone, there's 3 zones, A, B, and C, in the Commonwealth. And in every zone, there will be casinos.
Right.
So, so with a slot parlor, if there's a slot parlor in Zone B, there's going to be a casino in Zone B. If there's a slot parlor in Zone A, there'll be a casino in Zone A,
Right.
eventually. So what's the difference? It doesn't really make that much difference.
I agree with you on the slot end of it, because casino is a very big business. I think they should have more slots and fewer casinos, because casino, you can see they're cannibalizing themselves down in Connecticut now. Some of them are really having trouble getting by financially. And I've been to Arizona, where you go to a casino and, gee, nobody's there. You know, you can oversupply them. But slots, people like that. I mean, it's the game of chance that people can play without having knowledge as being gamblers, quite honestly. I don't say it's right. It's up to people to decide whether they want to or not. And it's something that I wouldn't do regularly, but still.
It's one of the things that when we crafted the legislation, Don, we looked at the market. We had an expert analysis done for us in the legislature.
Right.
And so the experts came back to us and said, listen, we recommend 3 resort-style casinos, and they actually didn't make the recommendation for 1 slot parlor, but they basically said that a slot parlor, 3 resort-style casinos, I would assume that even 2 slot parlors still would be fine, that the market could bear that number of gaming sites in Massachusetts. And so we came back and crafted legislation that would get us 3 resort-style casinos, understanding that the Wampanoag tribe may have some federal rights.
Would they be a 4th? Or
No, we crafted it in a way that they would be the 3rd. That's why we actually gave some benefit to the tribe if they put in a bid. So they have, and if they do get land into trust, and if we get this done in time, then that would be your 3rd casino.
Is not their trouble federal, not local?
Federal, correct. But here's the problem. We could have a situation where we have the Wampanoag tribe not gain federal recognition in time
Right.
for the commission's interest,
Yep.
right? So the commission could award a slot license to Raynham, say,
Or New Bedford.
or you know, they could award a casino license to someone else within Zone C, and then you have Zone A with a casino, Zone B with a casino, which, by the way, these other zones, they're bidding on these, expecting that they're only going to have 2 other competitors
Right.
in terms of the casino world. So the value of their bid is all based upon 3 resort-style casinos being allowed. And so as soon as you end up having a 4th, because now, a year or 2 later, the Wampanoag Casino, tribal casino, gets approval at the
Right.
federal level, they're guaranteed to have the same right as any other operator
So there could be a 4th casino.
under the law. So there could be a 4th one if the commission moves too quickly to make a decision. I have urged the commission to give every benefit of the doubt to the tribal casino, primarily because if they don't, then these bids could be devalued, and you may not see the same economic outcome for the state
We're
as we
Zone
had.
C, are we, Mark?
We're Zone C, yes.
So I would say you're right. In other words, if there was another guy thinking of going in, let's use the word New Bedford, then he could say, wait a minute now, up Route 24, 10 or 15 minutes might be the Native Americans. And
That's
you're
why there's
right.
only one, that's why there's, at the present time, there's only one commercial casino that is actually bid into Zone C at the present time, which
Where is that?
it's I think it's, I'm trying to think of the actual name of the
But is it in?
casino bid. I think it was
Is it in New Bedford, Fall River, or the
KG
Cape?
Urban, I think it is, in New Bedford.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's
The
what I was,
Bedford area.
okay. All right. And the Middleborough sting, you represent Middleborough. Middleborough's still stinging from the Native Americans originally there.
Yeah, and I was very involved with them on that, and I have been frustrated about the whole thing as well. And of course, it was a different leadership group that was in charge of the tribe at that time, and I can remember sitting down with them in the town of Middleborough, and they were absolutely going to Middleborough, and of course,
Yeah.
that's in my district.
Yeah, I'm
And
saying, yeah,
So I was very supportive
Here we go.
of what they
Yeah.
wanted to do,
yeah.
and it didn't happen. And of course, there was a new election, a new tribal leadership, and they looked at everything and they decided that they wanted to go in a different direction. And it happens to be in Taunton, which again is in my district, my hometown, and I have to be supportive of whatever decision. I mean, the final decision is not mine, it's not any of ours. It's going to be up to whoever the operator is, along with the community, to decide whether or not they want to head in a particular direction. So I certainly understand the frustration, in particular the Middleborough residents that were so much in support of, and did a lot of work to advocate for the passage of the local vote that they took in favor of the casino. But they have made a decision to head in a different direction.
Seems like a good committee heading it up. They did fight off someone in and around Suffolk Downs, I guess, that was a little bit questionable, and they seem to have been correct. Yeah, I guess.
Yes, yeah,
You
they
know,
they
had
have,
some influence there that was not,
they've actually had a couple
It's
of
difficult when you
instances,
talk
one
gambling.
over at Plain Ridge,
yeah.
right, with one of the leaders at Plain Ridge that had an issue. And so he disassociated himself with that group. And of course, there's this other issue that came up with one of the affiliates dealing with the Caesars
Of course, when it comes to
partnership.
gambling, you do need people of a little bit questionable, because be it originally in Cuba, before you were active at all, Fidel Castro came in. Prior to that time, the rackets were in Cuba. And then Las Vegas, I forget the name of the guy, some guy with a crazy name, founded that. So it's kind of had gambling. It's difficult, and that's why I give George Carney high marks. He has operated an independent operation, and no one seems to either have bothered him, or else, he doesn't be intimidated by them, because any way you look at it, he does run his own show, and he does it rather well. He's a good businessman.
They've had a good economic anchor. They've been a good economic anchor for the town for years. I can remember back in the days when I was still playing in a band, and
Did you ever play up there at the track?
I played there at the track back
You
when
were at the Legion, I know that.
back when they had the fire department used to have their big
The ball.
the fire department ball, the
Fireman's
Raynham
ball.
Fireman's
Yes,
Ball.
I remember that.
And we'd have probably close to 1,000 people that would go
I know.
to,
And the fire regulation was
event.
okay.
and it was okay, yes. It was good.
Patricia, you
Now, another thing I know that you had a big role in was getting funding for our high school, our new regional
Yes.
high school. And we were able just to get in on the higher amount before it was reduced through.
Yeah, there were a
some
couple of things, and actually
strong-
Don is,
Yeah, I was
as a
on the
member of
committee
the
when Marc was
selectmen.
walking around saying, well, I may not be able to do it. He sounded
Yeah.
like Mark Anti instead of Marc Pacheco.
Yeah, well-
I may not be able to do this, but I'll see what I can do.
And they asked me locally if it was possible to move forward and get get the system in regionalization, so we could take care of those regionalization funds. And we got it done.
That's right.
We got it done, and it has made
It got grandfathered.
a huge
Is that
difference.
the term we
Yeah.
use? Yeah.
we got it put in, and it made a huge difference for the town in terms of the revenue that the town is able to acquire as a part of being in that system.
Absolutely.
And I know it's not gone without controversy.
Leave me out of this. Just
not
leave
gone,
me alone
not
now.
gone without
You said you'd
controversy.
be nice to me.
I haven't said anything. I haven't said anything.
What's
I'm
the
just
trouble?
saying that
But that was me.
it is true no
Was it the
matter.
Pat or I? Oh, wait.
Well, it doesn't make
Yeah.
any difference where it is across the state,
We're doing
actually.
pretty well right now.
Yeah.
And actually, 3 of our 6 schools are level 1 schools right now.
That's great.
And the 7th one is Merrill, which wouldn't be qualified anyway because it's just
Mm-hmm.
kindergarten and grade 1. But high school just got named a level 1 high school.
Yep.
And the Bridgewater Middle School and Mitchell Elementary School. And hopefully next year they'll all be level 1.
Well, it's interesting, and for the viewers, you could appreciate how I feel about this as somebody who is a former school committee member, and Pat was actually reporting on the school committee.
It was my
when I
first
was on the
assignment
school
as a
committee.
reporter. First
And then
assignment.
here we fast forward years into the future, and now I'm in the Senate, and Pat's on a school committee.
You would have thought I would have learned.
Yeah, calling me up about some of the same issues.
That I had questioned you about.
That's
oh
right.
My God.
Oh yeah, it's great how it all.
If you wait long
just
enough, it all comes a full
comes
cycle.
right at full cycle. But I know that I'm working with people, in particular on school boards throughout the region, and the overwhelming majority of the local officials
Right.
that are really doing it for the right reasons. They care about what's happening locally. They care about what's happening, and it's evidenced by just going into any of the schools. I am always impressed here in the town of Raynham, and also in Bridgewater, when I'm walking into the school, as I just did to begin the taping here, and see the moms and dads waiting outside to pick up their children, and the great security that's here, just the great faculty and staff that you have within the regional system in this area. It bodes well for the future of this region and this country when you have systems like this one that are doing the right thing and giving the students the right opportunity for the future.
And have a lot of community input, a lot of volunteer input, and that's something you've also always advocated for.
Yeah, it really it's important. It's important because if you look at a school system and you just put it in a box and you're not really paying attention to what's happening in the community, what's happening in the lives of some of these children, then you're not responding to the needs that need to be met in those lives. And I must say you're doing an outstanding job with that here. And your superintendent's doing, I think, I'm prejudiced because I happen to like her. I think she's done just a great job. And
Patricia just pulled the rabbit out of the hat on that one, I
Yeah.
understand. She
We have an
signed her up
extended
for a
contract,
couple
so
more years.
she's finished this year and then another 3 years. So
yeah, that's great. She's done a good job, and she's somebody who has. The reason why I say that is I don't know her from any other relationship, just that I know of her response during some of the crisis situations that we've bumped up against, like all school systems do. And when I reached out to her on behalf of constituents, there was a return phone call right away. She was on the phone. She was checking out what was happening in the neighborhoods, what was happening, on busing, no matter what it was, right on the money in terms of, trying to make sure the community voices are in fact being heard in her office, and then taking that and working with the committee to, put in place the right policies.
Raynham has been fortunate in whether it's the faculty and staff or, elected officials that have attracted people that really do care about the community. As you said, it's the whole district is like that.
Yeah, and it makes a huge difference. And and I'm not saying we don't have good quality systems all across my district. What I am saying is that this is a top-notch, system here.
Sure.
We've got a great system here, and working with other systems, it's very, very important to see best practices. And when I talk to other systems in my district or around the state, I always point to, Bridgewater Raynham as a best practice, scenario. As I talk about City of Taunton in some of their best practices that the superintendent over there has been working on, in particular with some of the vocational educational programs that she's been doing and some of the other things that are happening over there. So it's really important, and it's a big part of our future here in southeastern Massachusetts, and in particular this district.
Right.
Education is critical to the future of our region. It is.
And you've worked closely with Bridgewater State University
Yes.
now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've worked very closely with them. You have some tremendous leadership there as well. And the president, Dana Malafaria, and the executive vice president, Fred Clark.
Who, by the way, has been working really closely with our regional school district.
Yes, I understand that.
Fred Clark?
Yes, and you have some outstanding administrators. When you look at their, people that head up their education curriculum, when you look at what they've done with the facilities on campus, and you take a look at the Math and Science Center that's there. I mean, we have essentially a $100 million Math and Science Center at Bridgewater State University now, which, believe it or not, I was just at MIT and I was just at Harvard with an Austrian delegation that had come through looking at some of our green tech policies here in Massachusetts, because I've tried to be a leader on those issues. And working with small businesses like Monroe Distributing right here in Raynham.
They're right around the corner.
They're right around the corner from your house, and they do a lot of work in the clean energy sector in terms of photovoltaics, solar panel installations, those types of things. And when you take a look at the total economic impact that all of these things combined, and education being at the center of it all,
Right.
it is really very, very important for the future.
Yeah, I noticed you're into environment more than most people in the Senate. Is that fair to say?
Well, I chair the Climate Change, Global Warming and Climate Change Committee in the Senate. I'm the Senate chair. Actually, was the founding Senate chair. We created that committee.
Is that not a thankless task?
Well, it is, because you get into a lot of debate as to whether or not climate change is real or it isn't.
And you get trying to get across the ice.
Yeah, so you get all of these types of discussions. But the way I look at it is much more pragmatic than that. It's we can have the debate as to whether it's real or not, but if I can show you a plan in which you're able to save money and cut down on emissions, wouldn't that be a good thing anyway?
That's
right?
the way,
And so whether or not it's solving a climate change issue or not, although all the academic scientists, all of the science academies that are in the world, all of them have said that yes, human activity is impacting climate change. There is not one academic science academy in the world that has said otherwise.
Where is the opposition coming from then?
Well, you have
Because it's formidable.
Well, it's formidable, and you see it in our television advertising all the time. I'm sure if you turn on CNN or MSNBC or any of the major channels, you'll see ads for the fossil fuel industry. There's one ad where there's a very, articulate woman who is saying what a green energy future there will be and all the jobs that will be there in the future. And it's really about the gas industry or the oil industry or the coal industry. And we subsidize those industries significantly with our federal tax dollars.
Right.
And so, okay, that's all right, and people can have their opinion on that. And And many of us are stuck in some of the fossil fuel. You know, I have oil brought to my house. I have an oil tank, you know, to take care of my house until I have an alternative, right? But there are alternatives that are showing up every day at our doorstep now.
Is coal a dead issue, though, as far as the environment's concerned? Is there no way that they can take coal and make it practical?
They've been talking about clean coal since the 30s,
Yeah.
believe it or not. And yet, you know, Singapore just decided this week to eliminate coal plants
Wow.
in their country. We're seeing in Somerset, Brayton Point, now announcing that by 2017, I think it is, they're going to move that plant off the grid and close it down because they're no longer efficient.
So coal,
in terms of-
evidently there's no way we can redeem it. There was a thing on 60 Minutes, I believe it was last Sunday, and it said that the black lung disease is still prominent in employees. And they interviewed some surgeon from Johns Hopkins, I believe, who was knocking down all of the cases, of which the case settlement would have been like $1,000 a month. And the fellow that they interviewed, he didn't live out the interview even, from the black lung disease. Well, the original unions, one of the original reasons for unions was not money, it was health, and it was, the miners were part of it. The reason it keeps going is that the miners are not well educated, many of them, and they're not able to find another occupation, so they keep doing what is, and I didn't realize that the black lung disease is still prominent in the coal country.
Well, when you look at public health, that's why this issue of climate change or the green economy is not just an environmental issue. It's a public health issue. It's a public safety issue. Quite frankly, it's a national security issue to a great extent. And it's an economic development issue. When you look at public health alone, it's quite significant, the impact that coal has had on our society. And there's great parallels that can be drawn to the tobacco industry. In the ads that were once run for the tobacco industry, the countless number of physicians that would be brought out front to shill essentially for the tobacco industry, saying that it was perfectly fine and not hazardous to our health. And today, most smokers that are still smoking in America now will acknowledge,
Most of them
as
try not to.
they would be doing it, that it is harmful to their health, and they shouldn't be doing it, but they're just addicted now, and it's very difficult to do as somebody who was a former smoker. Back in the days when Pat would remember that, believe it or not, at school committee tables and at city council meetings or selectmen meetings, we used to smoke at the table.
Isn't that something?
I was a former smoker.
Yeah.
And
it was
we'd smoke at
terrible
the
for
table.
those
How
of
many
us
years,
who were
Mark? How many years did you
non-smokers.
smoke?
Oh, I smoked 3 packs of Marlboros a day
Ooh,
for
wow.
for you know a half a dozen years or so. But I quit. I thankfully quit when it was during the Great American Smokeout Week
Wow.
locally in Taunton, and I quit that week. I had a terrible cold as well that week, and threw those cigarettes
When I
out and
smoked,
just never.
even if I had a cold, I would go to like Cool Cigarette. I would go to a lesser
Well, so you're a
brand.
former smoker too.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there you
For
go.
about
See
10
that?
years, yeah.
Is 2 of the 3 of us former smokers.
Pat would never
I was a
smoke.
former inhaler of smoke.
Yes, yes, that's right. You were, and we learned a lot about public health on that one issue. But there are dozens of issues like that where we learn all the time about their impact and the environmental impact on our public health. The cancer rates, the types of scenarios that are in different sectors of
You're not
our
getting any feedback
U.S.
that's hurting you on this, do you believe? In other words,
Oh, you'll get. I get people all the time that think that it's going to be an economic killer. But the good news is that we are now finding out because a few years ago, I could only talk about the future of a clean energy economy. And because we passed an oceans management bill, a clean energy bill, the Global Warming Solutions Act, a biofuels bill. So the legislature, along with the executive branch, have passed and now are implementing a series of pieces of legislation that over the last several years, believe it or not, has helped to create some 5,557 new clean energy companies in the Commonwealth. We've seen a 24% growth in the employment rate just in the last 2 years in the clean energy sector, which is now employing close to 80,000 private sector jobs. And that growth rate in the last year, from 2011 to 2012, we didn't include 2013 because it's not concluded yet, but from 2011 to 2012, the greatest growth rate, over 14.3% in southeastern Massachusetts. So I can point to these numbers now and say, you know, here's what we're doing, and here's why it makes a difference.
I understand why you're doing it, but I'm wondering whether it's like being tarred and feathered if it wasn't for the honor of it. Did you get that position to lobby for it, or did they say, tag, you're it, Mark?
No, I actually asked for it, believe it or not. I asked for the headache.
People who wouldn't take that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I asked for it. I was asked by Al Gore, actually, a number of years ago when the award-winning documentary Inconvenient Truth came out. I was asked to go to Brookline to be there when at Coolidge Corner Theater when the film came out to look at it and then have a little discussion with people after as the environmental chair. And so I did that. And at the end of that movie, there was a little section that said, you know, sign up if you want to be a climate messenger. And so when I got home that night, I did that. And I got home, and
one of him born every day.
a few weeks later, I was in Nashville, Tennessee. I came back, and you both will laugh at this. This is a true story. I told the Senate President, I said, listen, I just learned how to give this 45-minute slide presentation. And so you have the choice of sitting down and listening to me give you this 45-minute slide presentation, or I want you to create this committee on climate change and name me chair. And of course, what did he say? You have to know your audience, right?
Congratulations.
He says, you've got the chairmanship. And that's how we started it. And that's how, in part, some of these bills came forward after having statewide hearings. And we've got some great news out there in terms of this part of the economy. And I can tell you that energy efficiency is the least expensive way to go.
There's an initial cost, though, isn't there, Mark?
Oh, there's some initial cost, but you know, you save thousands of dollars, And this Monroe Distributing that's right here in the town is one of the companies that is actually making inroads in this area.
Yeah, they've had some very big meetings over there.
Oh, they've been doing a lot of work on it.
Believe it or not, we are quickly running out of time.
Okay.
But we're going to be seeing you here back in town very soon because you're going to be visiting us for our Veterans Day assemblies on November 6th.
Well, you're putting it on me now. I hope to be.
We hope
I
that.
hope to
and then,
be.
of course,
Yes.
before you know it, it'll be Read Across America Week. We always have you back for that. So, and always you're
Talk to
welcome
Seuss.
to join us back here on the good old days, right, Don?
Mark is never a stranger in the town of Raynham.
Well, I want to thank the both of you very, very much
You're
for
welcome.
having me. And most importantly, I want to thank all of those at home that are tuned in to this program, but also have been tuned into what I've done over the years and have educated me about what I should be doing, and please continue to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our guest today, Senator Marc Pacheco. Don McKinnon, we'll say join us for our next
Thank you,
episode
Patricia,
of
for
the
doing
good
what you
old
do.
days.
She's with so much experience, Mark, more than you and I.
Very
Yet
good.
you started in the second grade, that's right.
That's right, exactly. So we'll see all of you here on the next episode of the good old days.